few years ago, okay, a lot of years ago, when I was a student at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, a group of our students and myself put together a Bible study program we called Hingepin People of the Bible. Hingepin People of the Bible. The study focused upon some of the nearly anonymous people in the biblical record whose names appear very few times other than to say that they did some small thing that affected the lives of many others. For instance, remember Ebed-Melech? Ebed-Melech in the Old Testament of the Bible? You don't remember him? Maybe some of you do. Ebed-Melech enjoys a brief moment of fame in the reading from Jeremiah this morning, and then he's gone. Just try to find Ebed-Melech anywhere else in the Bible. In a theatrical performance, Ebed-Melech would be said to have a bit part, a small but insignificant part. Entering stage left, walking to the center, leaving stage right with a few words in between, and then not being seen again for the rest of the play. Remember William Shakespeare, who wrote the words, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely are players. They have their exits, they have their entrances, and one person in his or her time plays many parts." But look at what Ebed-Melech did with his brief time on the stage. He saved the life of one of the greatest prophets of all time, rescuing prophet Jeremiah from a cistern in which the prophet had been tossed by people angered by his message. The temptation of Bible study is to trail off into a study of the life of Jeremiah and his thought, the shining star and principal actor who was on the stage. But today, it is Ebed-Melech's turn to be showcased, to be in the spotlight of our attention. True, there isn't a lot to be said about Ebed-Melech personally, because he was so meager we have so meager a source of information. But what we do know is that he is one of the Bible's hingepin people. So what is a hingepin person? Hingepin people are people who do little things that result in meaning a lot. Most of the doors in your home are held in place and swing back and forth on those small inconspicuous pins that hold the two leaves of a hinge in place. When you get tired of hearing your doors creak and squeak too much, you oil the hinge pins. In days of old, when the security of a whole city depended upon the city wall built around it, among the weakest parts of the structure were the hinge pins that attached the entrance gate to the wall. Though relatively small and inconspicuous, these hinge pins were little things that meant a whole lot. For the security of the people within the city walls, their lives depended upon it. You could say that these hinge pins were pivotal. And so hinge pin people are people who do little things that end up meaning a whole lot. I'm going to guess that everyone listening today can at least find in the files of their memory at least one person who has been a hinge pin person in your life, where some of the seemingly small things they did or said had a profound impact on you and the way you think and the way you believe even today. Perhaps it was a parent whose words you've never forgotten, a school teacher who didn't give up on you even when you gave him or her a rough time, a Sunday school teacher whose day-to-day faith impressed you and helped to shape your own, a person whose example of life you try to emulate to this day in your own daily life. Back when my friend and I designed our Bible course for Hingepin people of the Bible, we concluded that Hingepin people have some important characteristics in common. For one thing, they are alert. They notice what's going on and not easily distracted. I really mean notice. Really going on, what's really going on in relationships. They try to avoid playing games that weaken or distract. They notice what is going on inside people as well as what's going on outside people, on the surface, on the outside. They recognize a need when they see it. They look, they observe, and they listen to people and the world around them very carefully. And another thing about Hingepin people is this: they are caring people, more eager to find a way to care than ways to criticize, judge, and complain. And when they find themselves inclined to criticize, judge, or complain, they catch themselves. They're self-aware of that. And they make personal changes. Other people and their needs matter very much to them, even when other people are misbehaving or disturbing them. Hingepin people are responsive. They're willing to speak out, to take action when they see a need. They often take personal risks in order to help someone or to challenge, to reform, or improve society when morals and injustice and prejudice and other forms of conflict are leading us astray. There is certainly plenty of those in our day. And finally, Hingepin people, they are faithful people. They are faithful to a higher power than themselves. They are like the shepherd who wrote the 23rd Psalm, who as a shepherd realized he too needed a shepherd, and so he wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul." And he goes on from there. A person realizing his need to have a shepherd, even though he was himself a shepherd. Hingepin people are alert, caring, responsive, and faithful. Those four. Alert, caring, responsive, and faithful. Day in and day out, they do many things that come to mean an awful lot. As anyone reads through the Bible, one will find that God has need of very few leading roles in the mighty drama of history, but rather there is need for many small bit parts, if you will, as many little parts that mean a lot. There are countless opportunities in our lives to serve as Hingepin people for others. If we make the practice of being alert, being caring, being responsive, and being faithful to God in showing us our way. Who can say what the consequences may be 20, 50, 100 years from now of our teaching a Sunday school class? Offering a word of encouragement to someone who is feeling down, or smiling at a stranger in the supermarket. Who can say what will be the consequences of helping to lift someone's burden by the gift of your time and your resources, or weeping with someone who is weeping, or rejoicing in someone's joy by letting that person know you share in that joy and are thinking about them, or saying "I forgive you" to someone who you know needs that gift from you. Plus you need to do it for you too. If you're faithful to God, as Hingepin people try to be, you will find that there is no good reason for you to hold back the gift of forgiveness and to carry the burden of it or resentment any further or any longer. To give the gift, to share the gift of your forgiving love, care. It is so important to carry out special moments in busy lives for people who mean a lot to you, to let them know how much they matter. There are so many little ways we can say to others, I am so glad that you are in my life. Who can say what the long-term consequences will be if you, as a hinge-pin person, resolves to say, I love you more often, give hugs more often, send a friendship card more often, make a phone call more often to someone who is lonely, to affirm people more often than criticizing them, to notice people's strengths as often as you notice their failings, and to say, I'm sorry, to a deserving person. And to share your faith with someone looking for spiritual strength. Now that last one, about sharing your faith with someone looking for spiritual strength, brings us to the gospel reading from John this morning. A fisherman named Andrew met and was impressed with Jesus. And following this, it is said of Andrew in the Bible, he first found his brother, who was Simon Peter, and said to Peter, we have found the Messiah. We have found the Messiah. He then brought Simon Peter to Jesus. And the rest is history. For as we know, Simon Peter eventually became the lead disciple among them all. Andrew was a hinge-pin person. He did the little thing that came to mean an awful lot. He introduced his brother Peter to Jesus. The long-term consequences of that event are still with us today. Could you be a hinge-pin person like Andrew? Bringing others to church with you, sharing your faith in Christ with someone who could greatly benefit from the spiritual strength that flows from that? As we all come to the table of the Lord's presence this morning at communion, perhaps in prayer, you might ask of God what God would have you do next to be a hinge-pin person for others.